What's up, guys? Happy Friday to you, wherever you're joining from on the live stream today. If you're on the replay, there are chapter markers in the description, in the little, timestampy thing where I'll link to the different sections that we talked about today. I'm excited for the live stream and the guest that we've got on that I'll introduce you to in just a little bit. There's still time to submit your live stream for review if you want to get into that second hour of reviews. The link for that is in the description. Let me know in the comments right now in the next 4 minutes where you're watching from. Is everything sounding good, looking good? Hopefully I got all the bugs out before we began the live stream today. Changing it up for this noon hour live stream, so hopefully it's not too late for some of you that are normal viewers. But I'm excited. We'll hop into the reviews and all the Q&A tech stuff as we talk audio for churches in about 4 minutes. All right. Don't you say that, Aaron. Come on. No audio? I heard it on my phone. Oh, sounding good. Okay. Nice, nice. Okay, good. Aaron, you scared me. You said no audio. But sounds like everybody else is good to go. Hey, Daniel. Great to meet you, dude. Yeah, Philo was a blast. Maybe we can recap that in just a little bit, maybe. Oh, thanks for hopping on from Indonesia. 11:56. Well, hopefully I don't bore you into sleep. From Everett. Thanks for hopping on, Ryan. Hey, do I know Rhema Bible Church? Rhema Bible Church is just down the road from where I'm at. And they're doing some upgrades with the integrators that we're working with. So I'm excited to maybe go over there and check out some of their stuff in the near future. Hey guys, thanks for hopping on. Oliver from Palm Springs. Sweet. Oh. Aaron, you had to restart YouTube. Good deal. It wasn't my fault. It was YouTube. When are you going to remodel your worship center? We'll be moving out of our worship center in October, actually, and into our smaller venue. So, prepping everything now. Your brother is the one that made the LED screen? Okay, now I need to talk to him. He physically made it from parts at Rhema? That's cool. Hey, thanks, Ryan, for the encouragement. Like, you don't know how much that means, because it is a lot of work to do this. And hopefully you find value in it. That is fun, entertaining, inspirational, and it makes me a better worship leader in the long run. What's up, Brian? You ready to play guitar in a couple weeks? It's gonna be fun. From Sacramento, nice. Well, if you're part of the early crew, go ahead and hit that like button on the video today. And we're gonna get started in just a minute. If you have some tech team that you want to hop onto the live stream with you and join in the chat, share this live stream with them. It's gonna be a fun one. I see you. Flannel Night, come on. This camera right here is the GH5 with the Sigma 18-35. No speed booster, just a dummy adapter. Let's go. All right, guys, welcome back to another Friday live stream. Thanks so much for hopping on today. You are in for a treat because we have Jesse O'Brien from Red Rocks Church coming on to talk all things audio for churches. I'll let him introduce himself here in a little bit and kind of tell you about what all he's been up to these days. But thanks for hopping on the live stream. We've got lots of people in the house today and our noon time here. And it's a beautiful Friday around here. It's summertime. My kids just got out for the school year and the chaos will begin soon. And I'm excited. We got a great summer. Lots of stuff planned. We talked a little bit in the countdown there about upcoming remodels and things happening here at our church. And I actually traveled to Miami this last week on just a single day trip to go check out some products, some LED wall stuff that you may be hearing more about in the future. But maybe we can talk more about that in hour number 2 of the live stream. Today, what I need you guys to do is participate in the chat. I will do my best to monitor it as best I can. Ask questions, specifically audio-related questions. We've got 4 live streams we're going to review in just a moment, and then there's still opportunity in hour number 2 to get into the pool for us, well, for me, to review your live stream. But right now, I want to go ahead and introduce Jesse O'Brien from Red Rocks Church. How's it going, Jesse? Thanks for being on the live stream today.
Yeah, man. How's it going, guys? Welcome to the live stream.
Well, Jesse, it's great to have you on, dude. Jesse is, I met him at Philo and got to hear his talk and have always followed Red Rocks Church, and they've always been a big inspiration for us. And so I just reached out and said, hey, dude, would you be willing to help me out with some live stream reviews? And tell us what you've been going on. You guys are on tour. Anything fun happening there at Red Rocks with what your role is there?
Yeah, man. It keeps me busy. So right now, on the typical week, I should say, or my normal role is I'm audio director, lead, or ministry, whatever that title is. But basically, oversee all the audio at all the different locations. So we have 4 locations in Denver, 1 in Texas, and 1 in Brussels, Belgium.
You have one in Belgium?
So we have 1 in Belgium. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. It's been about 7 years now it's been there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Trying to make a foothold in Europe. You know what I mean?
Hey, they need Jesus, man.
Amen. So my role is basically just kind of oversee the personnel, the audio contractors and volunteers, and then I do all the broadcast mixing on a week-to-week basis. And then I do kind of on top, so that's kind of my normal role, and then kind of the goodies sprinkled on top, which is a very big, typically turns into a very big role, is I do a lot of album work for Red Rocks Worship. So whenever they do an album or they do singles or they do one-offs, we pretty much do it all in-house. So we do it right here in the studio. We record it live downstairs, and then I come in and I edit it and I tune it and do all the things that you do to an album, and then mix it. So that, especially with an album, that adds up to be a lot of extra work. And then in addition to that, when they go out on tour, I typically go out with them and do front of house for them.
Yeah,
so
that's a lot, because
a lot of audio hats.
Sunday is always coming, and we've always got to prepare for that and be ready to go for the weekend. But then you're adding live album production stuff, and then touring on top of that, dude, and that's a lot to manage. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts, and I think we're probably all curious, since you're the broadcast audio guy for Red Rocks, like, what is y'all's typical setup? What are you doing there?
Yeah, so we're all in Pro Tools. We're all on DAW. We made the switch early COVID to a DAW. Before that, I was mixing on a CL5 in broadcast, and it did a great job. There's just some mixing and routing limitations that it was like, hey, if we want our broadcast to sound like an album or closest to an album that we can get, I need to be able to do some things that I would normally do on an album. And to do that, I need the tools that I typically use, which is Pro Tools. Now, with that being said, I'm very, very kind of OCD when it comes to like processing and what plugins I'm using and, you know, how heavy they're digging into the CPU because it is broadcast and it is live. And I don't care how good your broadcast sounds. If it crashes, it's a problem, right? So with all that being said, it is simplified to the most that I can simplify it to make it stable and not crash on me.
Okay.
And so far, so good. Knock on wood. It's literally never crashed in a live thing. I did have one time, but it was my fault completely, where we lost stream or I lost audio because when I first set up Pro Tools, I iLock authorized Pro Tools through the cloud iLock, which works most of the time, especially in studio. The problem is if you don't have internet connection, it goes, hey, can't find the authorization, so you have 5 more minutes, and then we're going to quit. So save now. And it was like halfway into first song of the whole service. So sure enough, I had to quit. I had to save it, quit it, reauthorize it, and then get it back online. So we were down for like 8 minutes. That was the only issue where we lost stream. Other than that, it's been super clean. It hasn't crashed, knock on wood. And I've gone through 3 different computers too with, you know, basically the same starting template. And it's been solid.
Sweet. So when are you going to sell that template to us?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I'm open to it. I've sold it before a number of times. I'm not like putting it out there though online of like, here's the grand template that covers all, because I have my doubts on that sort of principle. You know, every church is different and every church should be different and unique. And will a one-size-fit-all template work for a lot of churches? Absolutely. And it'll get you really far. It'll get you 85% there. But there's just no way that a one-size-fit-all template can get that extra kind of 15 to 10%.
Yeah.
You know, that I think that's where the individuality comes in.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, we're going to dive into 4 different churches' live streams, and we're going to start off the session by reviewing a church called Northside Spring. And so Northside Spring submitted theirs, and they are using a Midas M32. It's all mixed by volunteers, and they just want general feedback on the whole live stream mix. So as per usual, chat, like, help us out and give us your thoughts as well. But let's go ahead and listen to, looks like praise from Northside Spring. Here we go. All right, there's a little bit from Northside, and you know, they got a little unique setup here, doing a little gang vocals or choir going on with the full band and everything. So did anything jump out to you on that first pass and listening to it?
Well, question, is this their front of house mix, or is it a separate mix from an M32?
That would be a great thing for Northside to let us know. They just said it's M32 mixed by volunteers. So I'm assuming that it is a separate board that's just being mixed for the live stream.
Okay.
Let's assume that.
Great. Love that. So the first things that jump out at me, first of all, I think the low end in the mix is amazing. It's full. It's you know, kind of gives you a big low end subby hub, a hug, which is really, really cool. And a lot of people kind of are afraid of that low end. So great job there. Couple, snare feels really good. It has a lot of presence. I feel like the rest of the kit doesn't match that though. So like I hear the backbeat of the snare pretty good, but then like the toms and kick are kind of non-existent. So if there's anything you can do to kind of get that kick out front a little bit and define those bass notes, the bass is really present, the bass guitar is really present, but get that kick out so it kind of defines the start of each of those notes. Would really help, and it will really balance that kick snare thing. And then
speaking of the bass and kick, I think that's something that a lot of us battle. Like that's the first thing that jumped out at me. I was like, this bass player's great, and I can really hear him. How do you do? You have any tricks? Do you do any like parallel compression with the kick and the bass guitar, or how are you managing that marriage of the bass and the kick drum?
Yeah, so this comes down to two approaches basically. First approach is the most important approach. Try to make the EQ of both fit together nicely. So if it means you have to thin the bass out a little bit to make room for the low end of the kick, or vice versa, or a combination of the two, right? So, soloed, they're not as gratifying sounding. Maybe they're a little thinner, but together they kind of fill in the gap that you just created in either or. That's priority. That's going to make that speaker be able to re-represent both of them at the same time better, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Right? So that's typically my first priority and first approach to kick and bass. The second one, which is kind of a cheat, I feel, funny enough, I kind of feel internally, I feel a little bit guilty every time I do it, but I end up doing it all the time, is sidechain. Sidechain the kick to the bass. So it's ducking the bass every time that kick hits. That's kind of a surefire way to just make room for the kick. So every time the kick hits, the bass is going away slightly, and it's fast enough where people just can't even hear it.
Yeah.
And usually a combination of the two really become super effective.
That's interesting. Let's listen just a little bit more, and then I'll let you chime in with some more thoughts. All right. Any other thoughts for North Side?
Yeah. So, vocals. Where are the vocals at? Lead vocals are pretty tucked. This is worship, and that's probably the most important thing of worship is those vocals. People want to sing along and they want to hear the melody. So get those vocals up. Don't be shy. Now, we're assuming this is a separate mix for broadcast. In that case, no, not to be harsh, but no excuses, right? Get that vocal up, get it nice and present. If you are mixing, if it's a front of house mix that you're just sending off an aux type thing to broadcast, a little bit more exception there, because who knows what the room is doing or how much you're hearing in the room that you're not hearing on a live stream that's influencing that decision. So assuming it's a separate mix, yes, more vocals. I think the instruments are really well represented. The snare, like I said earlier, is present. It's a little bit snare bottom heavy, so it's kind of papery. So maybe pull that top out and give it a little like 200 hertz in there to get some punch, get some girth to that snare. The bass tone sounds amazing. I think he's hitting a low B or something in there a couple times, and it's like it sounds great. So nice job.
That's cool. I see, they're in a cage there with their drums, and that's a lot of churches are facing that. Do you have any tips for miking drums inside of cages? And how do we have to battle some of the stuff you deal with there?
Oh man. Cages, tanks rather, are kind of acoustically the worst environment you can record drums in. They're a circle, so kind of acoustic property of a circle is it reflects everything back to the very center, which is typically where the snare mic is sitting, right? So you just hear it, the room, and it's a small, super weird reflective room. You hear it a lot, and that's the biggest downfall of a cage. Now, typically the benefits of the cage outweigh that, right? You have more control of the drums. You have way less cymbal bleed or no cymbal bleed in the vocal mics, all that kind of stuff, right? Which typically just translates better, even though the sound of the snare drum suffers a little bit. Miking in a cage, there's really nothing you can do differently than how you mic a standard kit. You
never under mic the cymbals or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. No, I never have and never found the need to. So pretty standard mic setup. Like I said, your biggest culprit is going to be that snare top mic because it's generally pretty close to middle where all the sound is being bounced right back to.
Gotcha. What's your favorite drum snare mic right now? Top.
Oh man, I've been battling this. 57s are great. They're kind of a go-to. You're real safe with that. I've been using a PR20, a Heil PR20 for the last 6 years, and I love it. It's substantially darker than a 57. But I feel like when you add a big old shelf on it, it's a better high end than like a 57. It's not quite as harsh, or it doesn't get as brittle quite as quickly. But I've also recently been kind of playing around with the DPA 2011 on snare top, which isn't the cheapest thing in the world, but it sounds really, really good. The high end is just incredible.
That's cool, man. All right, I think we gave some good thoughts there to Northside. Guys in the chat, if you heard anything and you want to chime in, do that for sure. Any closing thoughts about Northside before we move on to our next one?
Mind your panning. Everything sounds pretty narrow, so don't be afraid to widen things up. It's going to leave more space for your vocals, so you don't have to quite bring them up as much as you think for them to be heard and present, because things aren't all stuffed right in the center.
Yeah, man, panning helped us so much. We used to do everything just mono instruments. Like, we didn't have stereo guitars. Yeah. We didn't have stereo keys. We just, in the last month, have moved to stereo tracks. I used to just have click and guide on one, tracks on the other. And that has just like opened up our mix a lot, I feel like. So yeah, definitely panning and stereo. And it changes the game for sure. There's a reason we have two ears.
That's right. You got two speakers, use them.
That's right. All right, let's jump into our next live stream review. This is SciLife, I believe is the way you say it. Their mix is coming off of an Allen and Heath board at front of house. And they're looking for tips on like how to get more well-rounded full sound, but still have clarity in the vocal, like that full lovely sound, but you can still hear the vocals. So let's listen to SciLife do Praise for just a minute here. Here we go. I'm gonna get them full screen. There we go.
And even when I don't, oh, we praise 'cause we know you're still in control. My praise is a weapon, it's more than a sound. Oh, my praise is the shout that brings Jericho down. There's power in our praise, amen. As long as I'm breathing, I've got a reason to praise.
right, that's SciLife. They submitted theirs. And I would say before Jesse drops in with his thoughts, I just noticed on you guys, like, it says that you're streaming in HD, but it sounds a little like artifacty at times. And I just wonder if your encoding settings need to be a higher bit rate possibly for your audio. So check that. What did you hear, though? What jumped out at you here from SciLife?
First of all, low end kick bass relationship felt really, really good. The kick is punchy. It gets through, but it's not at the cost of kind of the definition of the bass notes. So really, really good job there. Oh my gosh, her voice, what a powerhouse, man. Like, just such a good texture, just such a commanding voice. It's super cool to see that. Way to go on that. I don't know her name, but beautiful job, beautiful singing. My biggest thing with this is, the encoding thing, and that could be outside of your mix, most likely is outside of your mix. But it does bring up a really good point. I see this a lot. Sometimes I do consulting for churches, and they do everything that they possibly can on the mix stage, whether that's in broadcast, on a console, or DAW, and they're doing everything right. They're mastering it. But they put very little effort or very little thought into what happens after the console. Where does that audio go? Does it go through? And I've seen horror stories. I've seen, like, oh, it's going through this other mixer in the video room, and they use that for volume control, and then it's direct out of that into this other little rack-mounted video audio thing, and then we're kind of with little tweakers getting the volume there, and then it's finally getting embedded into video. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, you just spent all this time on this beautiful mix, and you're running it through, you're bottlenecking it through kind of some pretty questionable gear. You know, so just always check what happens to the mix. Be really proactive on that. What happens to the mix after it leaves my console? I need to know, and I need to make it as clean as possible, so that when I'm mastering and I hit, negative 1 dB on my master fader, it's that same level all the way into the embed of the video, because there's not much room for anything there. And if anything gets gained up or down or EQ'd or added, you're clipping all of a sudden. So
how are you going
side tangent there?
How are you going from Pro Tools into y'all's encoder for you guys?
Yeah. So we are basically going, it's Dante out of Pro Tools. So digital out of Pro Tools, and then it goes basically through a Rio or stage box output, analog output, and then into a Cobalt embedder. And that's when it gets analog in Cobalt embedder, and that's when you get embedded back to video. I wish, and Cobalt actually just, it's actually a Cobalt card in an Open Gear server, video server. But Cobalt just recently announced that they're planning on releasing a Dante card, which would be amazing, because then my thing that I don't like about that situation, it's going through two levels of AD and D to A conversion unnecessarily, almost, right? It's like, if I could just get Dante straight in, then it wouldn't have to convert back to analog and then right back to digital for no reason.
Yeah.
But that's
one
the
thing,
way it is now.
You talked about this leader's voice and how strong a vocal she was. Like, I am a definite belter when I'm singing as well, but then you have those soft parts where you're kind of easing up. And what's your mantra there at Red Rocks? Are you allowing vocal mic technique from your singers if they're experienced? Are you really riding faders? Are you doing an auto compressor rider thing and some waves plugin? How are you handling those types of things?
Yeah, that's a really good question. A good singer will play the mic nicely, right? The thing I kind of don't like about that all the time is proximity effect, right? You kind of get, they pull away from the mic on belty moments, which is cool, but typically they're belting, so they're harsher in general, and you're also pulling away from the mic, which then drops your low end completely. So it just adds to the harshness that's already there. So that's the only kind of thing I dislike about that. But a little bit of play is nice. I will say, especially with most stage mics, live mics, they have a pretty closed pattern for the most part in general. So, you to play the mic, we're talking an inch to like 6 inches.
Okay.
No more than that. Like that's your extremes right there. If you're pulling away 12 feet or 12 inches or more, that's just too much. You're not doing anybody any favors. And if you're doing it because your ears feel weird, then maybe get with your engineer or monitor engineer, or just get somebody to help with maybe a compressor would help in my ears, so I don't feel like I instinctively have to do that.
Yeah. Let's listen just a little bit more, and then I'll let you give some more thoughts.
So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet, I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Mighty fortress.
Okay, we switched up to the male vocal there. Song everybody knows here, Battle Belongs. Any thoughts?
Yeah. So kind of more instruments type stuff. I feel like vocals are very kind of where they need to be. They feel good. So this is interesting. It's kind of a good example based on the last church. Low end and kick are feel really good, but now the snare feels, not as good, right? My biggest thing, so I would get that snare up, get that thing popping a little bit more. I try, and they're very different sounding drums, but I try to get the kick snare. I mean, it's kind of a joke, but it is very real. The kick and snare is the most important part of the kick, and getting those together really makes a difference. It's the boom clap of the whole of everything, right? And it's real. So like, if the kick is more present, even if the kick sounds amazing and feeling good, but the snare isn't quite there, you don't get that back and forth, that pocket or that groove that kind of comes from the boom clap kind of thing. So always make sure you're just putting a little bit of an ear or thinking about how the kick and snare feel together. In this case, I feel like the snare is a little light.
Yeah, man, I love it. You got to have the rock solid kick snare, man, to tie it all together. Last things that I would say is video wise, you guys look like you're doing a great job. I noticed sometimes on the directing where maybe you were hanging on a background vocalist that wasn't leading, and it was almost like confusing to the viewer. So if you're going to pop over to those, make it quick and then get back over to your lead vocal. But I think everything looks good, and great job. Keep it up. Take some of the stuff that Jesse said and try your best to apply it. And that's one thing I want to go into next. We had a great question come in, Jesse. Fender Jose asks, what is Jesse's process for making changes? Are you listening back every week, offline sound check, private lives, or are you just kind of making changes on the fly?
Yeah, so all of the above. All of the above. Anything and everything you can do to better your mix, you should be doing. Okay? There's no like right or wrong thing that you can, there's not like one magic thing. The magic thing for me is referencing it outside of the studio. Get yourself in a situation where you have a comfortable listening environment that whether that's your car, whether that's a home stereo that you've had for 20 years, whatever it is, whatever you listen to, and you're like, I know how things should sound on this speaker. You should be checking your mixes on that speaker constantly. Everything I mix, whether it's album, whether it's broadcast, whether it's anything I mix, I take it to my car and listen. Every single thing. And it shows me things. It kind of reveals the good and the bad, because I know those speakers and I know how things should sit. And I'm not like, listen, it's not like you do the service and you go in your car and listen to the whole service again. I'm skipping around. It's like, how do the loud sections feel? How do the big choruses feel? How do the low choruses feel? And it'll review things like all the time, constantly. And you'll never figure it out. That's the kind of catch-22 of it. As soon as you think you got it figured out, you're like, all right, I really know how things should sound in the studio now. I got it. Take it to your car and be like, ooh, well, I'm just brought right back down to earth, and I need to continue practicing because that was absolutely atrocious.
Do you have a
and that's
favorite
good.
pair of headphones that kind of has been like a good, hey, this kind of represents most of what I'm going to hear on AirPods or cars or whatever?
Yeah, I struggle with headphones. I dislike them, but more and more recently, I've actually been having to do a lot of stuff on location. Just editing and Pro Tools. Just because I'm out of town and I need to get something done, right? So I've kind of been forced to use headphones, and I actually like these in-ears that I'm wearing. They are all clears. They're like just the 3-driver studio reference ones. I went to All Clear. I don't know if you know him, but Johnny Serrano, he's amazing. Went to their headquarters in Nashville and tried a bunch of them. All the like 18 driver and the high driver count. And I think they're valid in a situation where you're on stage and you need power. You need thump in your ear. But for referencing, they're just too much. And I think there's a bit of a hype behind it of like, for me, I'm looking at the physics behind it, right? More drivers equals more crossover points, which equals more combing on your mix, right? So 3 drivers was like a sweet spot, and I really, really enjoyed how they sound. And I'm surprised at how flat or how true they are. When I do a mix, I'm a ball of insecurity when I'm mixing on my headphones. I'm doubting every move I make. I'm like, I don't know if this is too wide, if this is too bright. But with these, honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised. I'll take it and listen in the car and be like, that's not actually nearly as bad as I thought. So that's what I've been using. I have a pair of higher-fi, like Biodynamic 1990s. Or 19... I think they're 90 Pros. And they're good. They're fun to listen to. They have a pretty high shelf on the high end that I'm kind of disappointed about, but
gotcha,
because they're just not true. But it does make it fun to listen to.
Let's do another question before we go to our next live stream review. Flannel Knight asks, how much and how aggressively are you using high-pass filters on things like vocals, acoustic guitars, electric guitars, room mics, even bass guitar?
All of the above except bass. Yeah,
what's your frequency that you're rolling off at?
It all depends.
Okay.
It all depends on the instrument, and it all depends on the surrounding instruments, right? That's a really big thing for me. EQ and EQ changes, including filters, are very much a situational adjustment, right? And in a studio situation or an album situation, I'm making every section EQ slightly different for each track because every section has a different amount of tracks built into it, right? So it's like first verse is like piano, vocals, and maybe a little noodling guitar and a pad, right? So it's pretty stripped down. There's a lot of room. Well, if if I'm EQing the piano, there's room for a lot of low end. In fact, there's all the room for the low end. That's the only low end in the whole mix. So I'm kind of relying on that piano or relying on that low end of the piano, the left hand, to kind of fill the low end, fill that part of the spectrum. But as soon as drums and bass and other stuff kicks in, all that low end has to go somewhere because the piano can't have it also, right? So I'm either splitting tracks up and re-EQing the piano when that happens. So if I could do that live, I would.
Well, you could with Pro Tools and tracks, right? You could just automate all that through MIDI and you just sit back and cross your arms and everything self-mixes.
Yeah. Yeah, assuming that I have 30 hours ahead of time to do that, and assuming that Red Rocks is going to play ball and stay, stay to the grid or stay to the skeleton
arrangement
of the song, which is just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So in a live situation, you have to kind of play it by ear, but don't be above. Don't get locked in the situation where like, oh well, on vocals you got to roll it off here, and that's the magical spot right there. Because in a third chorus, big, fat, huge, thick chorus, I'm rolling that. That's pretty high, and if you listen to those vocals soloed, they're thin. If you listen to those that EQ in like a first verse, it'd sound like a radio.
That's crazy. Okay, I had never really considered that, but yeah, on an album it makes total sense. It'd be interesting if one day we can somehow apply that minutia of tweaking to our mixes during the songs, because I could see it could definitely help open up the mix. So good thoughts.
Yeah, and then your mix is kind of, you maintain the fullness of the mix. And one of my big insecurities is I try to chase the low end of the vocals to some extent broadcast, but I can't catch it all. Right. So there's a lot of moments in my broadcast where like you hear a verse 1 and that vocal is thin, too thin. I'm like, gosh, I wish I would have rolled that back out. It feels great where everything is in, but in that stripped down moment, it feels thin.
Gotcha. All right, let's roll into our next one. This is Emmanuel, and they have volunteers that run their audio stuff, and it's all through a QL5. And sometimes they have to revert back to a board mix at front of house. They're trying to rethink how they do audio online. Should they go mixing in a box? Just want to make it better. So, and they ask the question of how do you mix for all the different types of outputs like cell phones, TVs, laptops. But I think we kind of touched on that some. Yeah. So let's listen here a little bit to Emmanuel, and we'll give them our thoughts. Here we go.
Praise when I told, hallelujah, come on. I praise because I know He's still in control. He's in control of me. Because my praise is a weapon. It's more than a sound. My praise is a shout that brings Jericho down. As long as I'm breathing, come on. As long as I'm breathing, I've got a reason to praise.
There's that pullback like you were talking about.
Oh, my soul, oh, my, see, I won't be quiet. I won't be quiet. My God is alive. How can I keep it inside? I'm gonna praise the Lord, oh my soul. Hey, come on, hands up today.
I love the energy. So they submitted their live stream, and then I actually found them doing praise on their live stream. And the key today is that I'm making everyone use the song praise so we can have the same bass line. And so, not bass line, but I guess technically bass line. So let's give some thoughts here to Emmanuel.
So my initial thought is I love the live feel to it. It feels like you're in the room, which is kind of the one of the biggest concepts to get right in live broadcast. So really, really good job on that. Great use of audience mics. That audience felt super present, which is awesome. And also added to that kind of live. It felt like you were there in the room. Again, it felt a little monocentric, right? So widen things out if you can. And then vocals felt a little too tucked. Like you could bring those out a little bit. I'm sorry. Did you say that this was a separate mix, or this was the front of house for them?
It says, when possible, they have a volunteer that runs online audio from a QL5. So
Gotcha.
sometimes
Okay.
it's the board mix from the front of house engineer.
Okay, great. That's really all I initially noticed.
Yeah, man. I think video-wise, you guys are doing a great job. I love the energy of the cuts. I love all the motion that you're implementing. White balance looks good. Framing looks good. I would say when I checked out multiple different live streams from this church, I heard some like artifacting going on, like not just like bad encoding, like it was like blippy, like digital blippy stuff that I would hear every once in a while. And if they're converting between the QL5 to go into something else, like maybe check whatever devices you're using there, because I'm not sure what's...
Definitely in this stream, there's some sort of clocking thing going on.
Yes.
It could be the encoding, but it sounds...
Yeah, something else
like
must be going on.
Yeah.
I think the vocal mics I heard on here, it seemed like maybe it was like some muddiness in there, not enough clarity. Give us some like vocal chain from Jesse techniques for, like, I've got a lady who, for some reason, she's just kind of tough to get that clarity in her vocal. She has this like natural muddiness whenever we put her on her 87As. And so I don't know, is that like, let's get the right vocal mic first? But for a church that doesn't have like 7 vocal mics to demo, what's your kind of thought process and method to getting a great vocal?
Don't be afraid of EQ. Do what you got to do. I have kind of two very similar situation where, like Corey, one of our lead singers, and Tyler, they have a really, really good top end presence. Like I never have issues getting clarity and getting presence out of them because they just have that bacon sizzle on their voice. Tyler more than Corey. Corey has a relatively round, smooth vocal. So I do have to fight a little bit more for Corey to get that presence. And then we have this girl, Sydney, who has just a super, it's very angelic. She's not a super like powerhouse singer. She's more of kind of a pop, clean, angelic kind of vocal. So, but in a live situation, the cleanness kind of comes across as like a little dull in the frequency sense, not in like performance sense, right? So you don't have that like power, that upper mid 2.5K that you do with kind of big power singers. So I have to fight for that. Now, yes, a good mic selection can really help that. We're using V7s on all our vocals, and she is kind of the one where I'm like, we should, a DPA probably would be pretty good on here, or a KSM9 or something like that with better high end than a V7. But if you don't have that option, just EQ,
Where's the most troublesome guy range? Is it 500? Is that where we should be starting at around there?
No. So your tubbiness or muddiness comes with a guy will be anywhere from 150 to like 250.
Cool.
So just ducking that, so typically my default where I start, for vocals, if I'd never heard them before, I'll roll off at like 110, 120. And then I'll have a bell dip at like 150 to 250, somewhere in that range. Pretty heavy, 6-7 dB. Then I'll use my next band for more of the 2.5, the harsh area, whether I need more. Typically, I need less of it. And then I'll use the last band, the shelf, high shelf, to high shelf it at like 6K and above.
Gotcha.
That's typically that 2.5K and the 150 to 250 area are typically the problem childs. They're the ones that, either it's too muddy or it's too brittle, harsh.
Gotcha. This was the week that they said was from the QL5. Let's listen to this one and see if it's any different, because this is a separate mix for sure. And they have a choir.
Come on, this is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad, amen. Come on, put those hands together. Worship you, Jesus. Come on, we sing together. Oh, this is the day you made.
I really hear the audience.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's the choir. I don't know. How do you feel about the width of the tom panning? What's your kind of go-to with width of tom pans?
I love it.
Okay.
I love the width. I'm just a sucker for when they do the do and it comes right across your ears. I love that.
Do you pan from drummer standpoint or viewer standpoint?
In a live situation, audience perspective. So high, if they're a right-handed drummer, high tom is to the right. My mixing right,
Yes.
as if you're looking at the drummer,
Gotcha.
and then floor tom's on the left.
Let's listen just for another minute. And
Yeah.
I'd love for you to give me some thoughts
Yep.
on gang vocal choir tips.
Sure.
Sing Jesus, come what may, you are worthy of
I love the rim light on your front singers there. Just a little bit of color pop. Everybody looks really evenly lit. Motion in the tracking shots looks great. How do you go about helping out and miking gang vocals like they've got going on here?
Man, that is a hard thing to do. I will be perfectly honest. We never do it at Red Rocks because it's just so tricky. They did a great job. Like, to be perfectly honest, kind of what you're doing is great. The closer you can get your mics to your choir, the better. If that means you need a few more to cover all the people, then do it. You're on a loud stage, and typically the stage noise is going to be as loud or louder than what's coming out of the vocals. So I don't care what mic you use. It's just kind of physics, right?
Yeah.
They're going to pick up what's loud, and the stage is probably louder than the vocals. So the closer you can get, the better. So you've done a really good job with that. Yeah,
Do you run in the
That's
tracks
really
of
the
gang
only
vocals to help supplement?
Yes. So whenever we do a situation that we have a quote unquote choir, it's on a live situation, it's faked basically.
Sure.
So it's pre-recorded tracks that are nice and clean. And then the people on stage are, they make it look like a choir, but you're not actually hearing them at all.
Had a good question come in from Daniel. Do you utilize reference mixes on a regular basis?
Yes, I think so. Especially if you are kind of new to the live broadcast world, or you're just volunteering, you're just kind of getting acclimated to this style, whether that's CCM, whether it's gospel, whatever it is. Absolutely use reference mixes, and be honest with your mix, A/B between the two, and just start from the bottom. Be like, what is the kick? What's the differences? What don't I like about my mix, or what do I like about my mix? And be honest with yourself and be like, yeah, that really stunk. I could do better here. Because that's going to lead you down a correct path. It's going to kind of give you answers of like, what do I do differently? If you don't use references, you're kind of blind. You're kind of going like, well, I don't know if it should be up or down or left or right or brighter or darker. I don't know.
Yeah.
References really kind of help answer that. So yes, always use references. I still use references. I'm constantly, comparing my mixes and beating myself up over them.
Yeah. All right, we got one more, and I want you to be brutally honest with me. You don't have to butter my biscuit any. This is our church because this is my YouTube channel, so I'm going to get Jesse to give me his thoughts on our live stream mix. So this is, the way we do ours is a stereo bus band and vocals, and then a pre-fader drum bus, because I have 4 different volunteers that run a front of house. One's a car mechanic, one's a realtor. They're just dudes. And so what I found was, we have non-cage drums. Some guys like a lot less snare in the house. Well, then there was no snare on the live stream. So we didn't change that much week to week. So it's been better for our situation. Probably isn't a good solution for everyone, but listen to us now doing praise from a couple weeks ago. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it.
Oh, my soul, put your hands together. I'll praise when I feel it, and praise when I don't. I'll praise 'cause I know you're still in control. My praise is a weapon. It's more than a sound. My praise is the shout that brings Jericho down. As long as I'm breathing, I've got a reason to praise the Lord, oh my soul. Praise the Lord, oh my soul. I won't be quiet, my God is alive. How could I keep it inside? Praise the Lord, oh my soul. Praise the Lord.
All right, there we go. Any thoughts for me, Jesse?
Okay,
What
so-
can we help on?
Yeah. So before I get into that, explain to me again what you have going. So it's the live front of house feed.
So it's a post fader stereo bus that's based on what's happening in the room on our M32. So I can independently set the levels ahead of time for that stereo bus, but it's also dependent on where mix is in the room. So if they bring up the electric guitar, it does bring it up in our live stream mix, but the initial settings on that bus is independent. And then that goes into a matrix that is combined with our drums pre-fader bus mix. So nothing that they do in the house for drums changes anything that happens on the live stream. And then we throw in audience mics and a little more effect maybe than they might run in the house. And that can bite me in the butt sometimes, because some guys like a little more delay than other guys, or some guys run more reverb. And so, you know, that's the way we've been doing it now. But in our remodel, we're thinking about going to a full independent, total different room broadcast audio suite kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, initially my first reaction, low end is amazing. Is just big and beefy and, got that going on, which is awesome. I'm really impressed actually with the drums and how, you know, kind of hardly hitting those drums, but they sound like he's cracking them. So really, really good job on that. That's hard to do, right? I always prefer a drummer that hits those drums. The drums just sound better when they're hit. He looks like he's kind of tapping them, right? So a little bit light to the touch. So really good job, because they don't sound that way. They sound like they're hit pretty good. My biggest critique, if I have to say, just the amount of compression. There's a lot of compression going on. I really notice it, like when your vocal kind of hits hard, the whole band gets ducked, or parts of the band gets ducked. You know, it's one of those things. It probably feels pretty good on a phone, though. You know, that compression, because phones like really compressed things. You're coming out of a speaker that's the size of a dime. That speaker likes less dynamics, right? So compressed things probably sound, you know, probably feels really good on the phone speaker. But in phones or any good decent listening, it feels like the master bus is really like a lot of
pumping too much. Gotcha. So on an M32, you know, we're using like the X32 classic precision limiter thing. Like maybe I'm hitting that too hard.
Yep.
I do have my vocals in a separate bus and then lightly compressing them together. And that could be somewhere where it's happening too. But, you know, I love like the Waves like vocal writer plugin. Like maybe if we did move to something like that, that might help. I don't know.
Yeah, if you know, the vocal writer could be cool if you're not babysitting the vocal, you know, if you're not like a separate broadcast mix where you have the availability for someone to kind of babysit the vocals a little bit more. But it does sound like that the vocals are causing the limiter to hit a little hard sometimes, because I hear the rest of the band kind of pull down when the vocals hit hard. So it's probably that master bus. Typically when on my main limiter or my mastering limiter, I'm like 3-4 at the max dB of compression. That's as far as I'll go. So whatever that means, my whole mix, On the biggest, loudest section, 3 to 4 dB of compression is kind of the max. And that usually gets me at, -8, -9 LUFS on my output.
Okay. That was going to be my question, is what LUFS are you aiming for?
Yep.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, that's a big, a lot of streaming services, they kind of provide, or they have a recommended value, which is like -14, some -17. And that's really, really quiet. That's like if I were to do a mix at mixed level where I'm in the yellow, but I'm not so hot it's clipping. I'm safe, right? But healthy. That's like that level. That might be like -14. So without any limiting or any mastering. That's essentially what they're asking for. And I've played that game where it's like, all right, well, I'll give it that. But then when you listen back, it's like, yeah, it sounds quiet. It sounds like a mixed level, right? It does not sound like a master. And then I'm going like, well, I know YouTube can handle a mastered level because they play everybody's videos all day long of studio albums, and so I kind of was like, well, screw it, I'm gonna give them a regular album level CD master at -6, -7, see what happens. And everybody's kind of scared of it because they're like, oh, well, they'll be penalized, and they compress it more to get it down a level. They don't. Worst case scenario, they're going to gain it down, but they're never going to recompress. Right. So even if they have to gain it down a little bit, I don't care, because it's like, well, it's just like turning the volume down a little bit. It's not like changing the shape of the master. And it translated way better. It was way hotter. It felt way better. So just give it a hot album, level, which is -6, -7, -8. I play it safe, -8, -9. Typically.
Gotcha. And for those of us not mixing in a box, is there a good way to measure that? Or are you just measuring it in post after you've already posted it?
No. You can get a good meter really helps. So like, TC Electronics, a big one you see all.
Yeah,
TC
I've seen that
Electronics
one.
Clarity. And they're like, I think like $400, which seems like a lot, but meters, especially hardware meters, can be ridiculously expensive. And that one, you can hook it up with analog, you can hook it up with AES, you can plug it in as a USB, and you can even use it as a plug-in. It's a really, really good, and it shows you your peak LUFS, and it's like, that's literally my go-to. So I have one sitting actually right here. You can't see it, but I'm constantly referencing that. And the most important thing is like big choruses. So when they're playing a big chorus, big moment, that's what I'm looking at, going like, yeah, I'm like at -8, -7. Great. I'm kind of right in the range.
Nice. No, that's a good tip, man. It looks like I need a budget for a new TC Electronic measurement tool.
Yeah.
All right. Dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some consoles have like some sort of metering built in where you can find that information out, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Some it's like, where is I don't know what my level is.
Right.
And the plugins or the processes in the console aren't doing a good job of kind of giving me that info.
Yeah. All right, dude, these were great thoughts. I hope a lot of people gleaned a lot of good info. We've gotten a lot of questions in the comments. If you guys have any thoughts, chime in there. I wanted to end our little session with you by doing a little overrated and underrated when it comes to church audio questions, okay? You down for it?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, overrated or underrated live drum samples?
I think they are... Oh gosh, I think they're a tool, and I think you can use them, and they can really make a big difference. I also think you can easily screw your mix up by overusing them, right? And I think it's one of those things that, like, to 99% of the people listening, they don't even know it exists. Right? They don't even know what it means to replace drums. They're just like, oh, it sounds like a snare drum, right? So they're not overanalyzing. But people that know, right? So if there's anything you can do to make it sound natural, do that, because you don't want it to sound like a drum machine gun either. So when I use triggers, it's never a full replacement. It's always in addition to what's there. And it doesn't excuse me from getting a good sound on the drums initially, right? Because I still need to rely on that snare with that trigger in a lot of moments in the marching sections, the ghost notes, stuff like that. Now, the other thing is when I broadcast, I do use triggers.
Like slate trigger?
But I am, slate trigger. But I'm riding those triggers. And triggers, it's only kick and snare. I'm adding samples to the regular kick and snare. And I'm riding those triggers all the time. I'm muting the snare, like any moments where it's like a marchy type thing or build type thing, I'm muting them. So I'm like constantly muting and unmuting those snares. They're I try to get them only in when it's like big beats on 2s and 4s, the big hits. If you're not doing that and you just expect it to automatically take care of itself, it's going to sound unnatural. I promise you.
Good thoughts. Okay, overrated, underrated. Let's say for churches under 1,000. Let's kind of give this a category. For DAW mixing for live streams, mixing in a box, underrated or overrated?
I think it's underrated. Here's the thing with a DAW. You can spend essentially you can get Reaper for free or $60, I think, and plus plugins, and it will literally allow you to do everything that you need to do to get an amazing mix. Everything, right? Routing, everything. It'll be quite a learning curve, especially if you're volunteer driven. That's the tricky part. But if you have somebody that's like way into it and like they just want to live, eat, and breathe it, let them have it. Let them go, because it's virtually no overhead cost. And it could turn into something that's like, oh, wow, this really makes a difference. Where if you did the same thing in the digital console world, in order to get the same flexibility in the digital console world, you're spending $100,000 easy to get the same routing and the same plugin capabilities. $100,000 easy. So it gets you in that door of kind of functionality for next to nothing. So I think it's very, very underrated. The trick is there's a big learning curve if you're not used to it.
Yeah, it's that double-edged sword, because for small churches that may have a bad space that they're fighting with and having to like deal with, you're EQing for the room, and now it makes your live stream sound bad. A DAW is great, but then the DAW for small churches may be more complicated to get volunteers trained on.
Yeah.
So it's like this catch-22 thing. I think it can be a valuable tool, though. Next
it can
one.
be. Like,
let's
just to give you an example.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, I carry my template on my laptop. So I literally have the template that I use every broadcast just on my laptop. So it's literally that easy. If you have an extra laptop and Pro Tools and some plugins, you're like set.
That's cool. Overrated, underrated, live vocal tuning.
I think it's, I'm not sure how to answer that. Underrated. I want to say underrated, but much like trigger, it can make problems worse, right? I think there's a big misconception with live tuning in that it's like, oh, well, live tuning will just fix all my problems. It just doesn't work that way. If you have a really good singer that's pretty much in key already, throwing some tuning on them will really, really help. It makes a difference, because it just keeps it sounds a little bit more studio. If you have somebody that's not super in tune, tuning will not help. It'll probably make the situation worse, because it'll mistrigger, it'll throw the wrong note, it'll just sound squirrel. It just won't help. So just be careful with it. It's not a miracle worker by any means.
What's your favorite tuning plugin that you've been using? Is it Waves? Is it something else?
I use Auto-Tune Pro. I think it's pretty nice. I will say you can tweak Auto-Tune Pro to get pretty natural sounding for sure. I feel like Wave's tune out of the box, it just kind of feels good. It's not
Are you just
overly
chromatic,
aggressive.
or are you changing per song to different keys?
I'm changing keys. Yeah, it just gets a little bit more precise.
How do you handle that? Do you have some like type of presets, a Stream Deck that's queuing them, or are you manually going into Pro Tools plugins?
In Pro Tools, the S1 controllers, I can assign. There's like assignable buttons that I can just assign to change keys. But yeah, you can use Stream Deck. You can even use markers. Just move your cursor to another marker. If you're not recording to Pro Tools, if you're only using it to mix.
Okay.
So there's a couple different ways. Yeah.
I have 2 more questions, and then we're gonna let you go.
Yeah.
What is the most underrated button on a audio mixer that audio engineers need to pay more attention to?
Ooh. Phase button.
Really? Okay. Do
Check
tell.
your phase. Just phase will influence your heavy hitters of the mix more than you think, right? So kick, snare, really kick, snare. If you have 2 mics on the kick and the snare, you have to check phase. And if you don't, you are missing more than 50% or more than the sound that's actually happening without even realizing it, because it's being canceled out by the other mic. So just listen to those 2 mics. If you bring the top mic up, it feels pretty good, and you bring the bottom one up, check the phase, flip the phase back and forth. If the whatever one is thicker is the one you want to go with, right? And same with kick.
That's a good one, man. Yeah, people forget about phase for sure.
All the time. Yep.
All right, last one. Underrated or overrated? In the house room stereo sound systems versus mono, LCR, that kind of thing. What do you think about stereo house sound?
That's tricky. I prefer stereo. I come from a studio background. I started in the studio, so stereo is king to me. However, I fully, and more so than ever before, I fully understand why mono can be very important in a live situation. I've mixed in quite a few different rooms, being on tour and stuff like that. And some rooms have been mono, some rooms have been stereo. And, I've been in rooms that are stereo, and it's like the 2 arrays are 50 feet apart, just a super wide room. And it's like, if I pan something to the left, literally nobody really hears it on the right. Like it's a problem at that point, right? So then it's like, okay, that wide panning, you really have to think about it now because half the room is missing half the stuff. It also, I still try to keep things stereo, but I think of stereo in a different way, less of like a panning thing and more of a, like kind of modulation type sound. So it's like guitar, for instance. If I have a single guitar, that's mono, I have to kind of choose where to put it. And I don't want to put it in the middle because it clogs vocals and everything else that needs to live in the middle. So it's like, but I can't pan it one side to the other because half the room will miss it, right? So what do? That's where I might do kind of a fake stereo thing where it's like, okay, I'll duplicate it, I'll double patch it to a channel and delay one side a little bit. So it's like, what it does is it shifts and then pan them wide, and it shifts it enough where it's not super noticeable, but if you are in the center, it pulls it out of center, right? Even though it's the same signal, it's just slightly delayed. So you get that pocket in the middle still, but both sides also get the guitar.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm kind of redesigning stereo in that situation. Also mix or like panning symmetry, I think is really important in a mix. if you are going to pan things wide, make sure there's kind of a counterpart on the other side that reflects similar energy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, if you're going to pan piano one side, acoustic the other.
Yeah, kind of if you have a noodling part on one side, put a noodling part on the other side. So try to find those kind of paired matches. The other thing is, if I had a preference, if I'm in a situation where it's a really wide room and they're, you're looking to get a new sound system, it's like, should I go mono because it's so wide, or should I do stereo? Stereo sets is the answer, I think, where it's like, you have, rather than just 2 arrays, you have 3, let's say at the simplest, or 4, where it's like left, right. So then 1/3 of the room on the left gets a left, right, or right, left, gets a stereo setup. Center gets a stereo setup, the opposite, and then the right gets a stereo set, which is the opposite again.
Gotcha.
So now you have 3 different sets of stereo.
That's cool.
Then you can pan, and you can be pretty safe with it.
Yeah, I'm excited. We have mono house right now, just some EV arrays, and we're moving to a Martin system that'll be stereo, and it's going to be hopefully beautiful. So
yeah.
I did forget one.
And go ahead.
I forgot one that I wanted to get your thoughts on. Remote mixing for broadcast. Is that something that we're going to be seeing more and more of? Do you do any of that? What are your thoughts on the future of that?
I think it's very doable. I think we have the technology to do it at this point. I think that it's such a niche thing that people haven't put the kind of the research or just the put it all together yet. I think the technology's there already. I think it's just like it's not a big enough thing where it's like, oh, we need to do this. But I do think it is a thing. I think it's a cool thing. I've talked about it with a number of churches of like, hey, we could stream multi-track to you and you mix it live, and spit a mix back to us live.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, the abilities to do that. Oh, did I just lose you?
Yeah.
Oh, you're back.
I got you back. Okay. So I think I would not be surprised if it's a thing in the future. Yeah.
That's awesome.
There's a couple guys out there that have kind of reached out that are trying to do it, and they actually like offer a service to churches where it's like, hey, we'll mix your service every week live, with seasoned engineers, so on and so forth, that are actually trying to make something of it.
Soon we'll just have AI mixing all of our stuff for us anyways, right?
I know. I know. Just wait. Pretty soon we'll all be out of a job, right?
That's right. That's what they keep telling us. Hey, before I let you go, I would love for you just to share, as the guy over things at Red Rocks, like, talk to me about your vision for just the audio experience, how that fits into your ministry there. What would you say to the volunteers that are watching this live stream or watching it on the replay, that are just the guys that, like I said, are plumbers throughout the week, but then they're coming in just trying to give their best? What's your thoughts, vision, encouragement that you would kind of end with there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So my part of my job is to keep kind of stylistic consistency from campus to campus with sound, right? And that directly translates to genre and stuff like that. We're all playing the same songs at all of our campuses anyway, but one of the big struggles I see at churches a lot of the times is that struggle of like, hey, we want to have a CCM output, but our drummer loves metal, our bass player loves fusion and plays the fretless, our guitar player, loves jazz and plays a hollow body and jazz riffs, and it's that line of like, cool, well we need a consistent output that doesn't have anything to do with what your musical preferences are, right? And that's a hard part. So I don't care what you do on a console or what plugin you have, you're not going to change that. You're not going to make CCM out of what's coming in, right? And it's the same with mixing styles. Mixing styles come into that. Some guys like it more kind of literal and raw. Some guys like it this big production and big luscious verb and stuff like that. I think the trick for leaders, A, is to find and know their style so that they can direct it towards that direction. And B, I think for volunteers and people coming into churches, have an understanding heart of like, hey, I have my musical preference and I understand that, or my mixing preference is, but I also am sensitive to the fact that, the church that I am serving also has a role, and they're trying to accomplish something online with a specific style. So I need to kind of cater to that and set aside my pride maybe a little bit to do that. And be open to it, be open to guitar tones and be open to mixing approaches, stuff like that to help achieve that. And own it. Be part of the solution. Don't be causing problems. Be like, all right, cool. Yeah, my mixes don't reflect that. What can I do? How can I do my part and research and listen and reference mixes to go, oh, they're doing stuff more like this. The drums typically sound more like this. Here's what I can do. I know how they're doing that. I'm going to try that next time. And then you're all working in the same direction.
I think those are great thoughts, man, because I found like feedback is a bad word usually in audio, but feedback for ministry is a really good and healthy thing. But as tech guys, we spend so much time working on our craft that hearing feedback, we can kind of like push away from that. I think that's a great thing to have a high feedback culture if we can do it in a healthy way and receive that and then just try to make it better and better each week and become who we're supposed to be.
Yeah. We talk about this a lot at Red Rocks, and one of the most, I think, one of the most important aspects of running teams in a live service is just that they're connected, right? And more specifically, the kind of the notorious two areas, production and worship, right? Those two departments just, they need to be connected and they need to be on the same page. And the more that on the same page that they are, the more the room moves every single time. I promise you that. And it's one of those things that, like, when you walk into a church, whether you know it or not, whether you're part, you look for these things or you don't, if the worship's going ham on stage and the production's just standing there like twiddling their thumbs, like they're bored or they're sick of the worship's antics, right? It's noticed and it's felt. Everybody walking in that room can feel that, right? Whether they're specifically picking up on that or subconsciously, it is felt. Where it's like, you don't have to be someone you're not, but conversely, if you walk into a room and the worship's going ham and the production, the camera people are like into it, it's contagious, right? You want to be a part of it. You want to feel it. You're like, oh, this is like electric in here. And the room moves, right? So that's why it's so important for worship and production to just exist. You're part of the same team. You're trying to achieve the same goals. So to throw a wall up just because you saw on a YouTube video, this is how you should do something, is kind of, it can be selfish, right? So just, put the scope back on yourself and go, okay, is this serving me or is this actually helping the room? And if it's not helping the room, be open to input on what can help serve the room.
I love it, dude. Those are great final thoughts, man. Well, you guys, drop in the chat some love for Jesse. Say thank you for all of his advice and thoughts. And how can people connect with you, find you, follow along the Red Rocks journey that you're on? Instagram. What's your main method of?
So on Facebook, it's just Jesse O'Brien, and then Instagram, it's _mixing_guy.
Nice.
So follow me. I'm always posting random, dumb little things. Sometimes some tips, sometimes some just weird things. So follow me. It'll be entertaining either way. I try to make it entertaining.
Yes, I love your profile picture with the shades, man. It immediately tells me something about who Jesse is and your personality.
Yeah. It's a funny story about that. I worked at a studio, so we never had like business like headshots. And then I started working at Red Rocks, and they're like, "We're gonna do headshots as a team." I'm like, I don't. And then I was like, I don't need, like, I'm already here. I'm already working. I don't need a headshot for like a resume. So I'm gonna have fun with it. So I was like, "Can I put my glasses on?" They're like, "Yeah, you do whatever you want."
That's cool.
And then it stuck.
That's funny, man. All right, guys. Well, subscribe to Jesse's channels, and if you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to say adios to Jesse. Thanks again for hopping on the live stream today. Show him some love in the chat, and then we'll be back for hour number 2 with just me on my lonesome doing some more stream reviews. Thanks again, Jesse.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Awesome. Well, guys, seriously, that was amazing. So much good stuff there coming from Jesse. I really, really appreciate over the last few months, just all of the guys who have hopped on and been able to give us thoughts and tips and tricks. But what I've loved most is hearing their heart behind ministry. And Jesse's obviously no different there. It doesn't matter where we're serving, we're called to the same calling to make Jesus' name great. And we get to do that through using technology and tools and live streaming specifically. I'm going to take just a couple minutes break here, and then we'll be back for round number 2. If you haven't submitted yet, you can do that in the link in the description. All right, I will be back in just a minute. All right, guys, welcome to the next little session that we're going to have here of live stream reviews. I've got some here already in the queue, ready to go. But I just want to say, man, it's been a great month since we had our last session of these. I met many of you at Philo Conference and actually attended Jesse's session there on songwriting, and it was really, really enlightening, and just the way that they go about doing things at Red Rocks. So that was really cool. Thanks, Jesse. And got to meet so many of you guys just walking up. I got the chance to share a breakout session about next level live streaming on a budget because, as you guys know, I don't have a big budget here at Central. $11,000 a year to do everything we do technology-wise. And so that was a lot of fun to get to do that. Hey, I'm still on my super source. Rylan clicked the wrong button. Stream Deck, come on. I'm an amateur. Philo was great, though. Had a great time. And if you haven't been watching the channel, I released 2 new tech tours that I would love for you to go and check out if you haven't yet. Got to go and visit a church down in Bethany, Oklahoma. And I just had a buddy who was playing bass there, and I saw him post their live stream. And I was like, this is an interesting church. I've driven by this church many times in my life, and they look like they're doing some really cool stuff there. So I got to go down and tour First Church Bethany, or Bethany First Church. I don't remember which way they say it. First Church of the Nazarene there. And Alan and the guys there walked me through, like, they have a surround sound, basically immersive sound system in their space. So that was really neat to get to go and actually hear and experience that and the way that they're doing that. Kind of like Elisa technology. I forget who makes that, but on a much more budget-friendly way, the integrator that they used. And just gleaned a bunch of ideas from them. Actually, have already begun implementing some. Like, we've switched over to Companion Satellite now at the church. Initially, we had every computer we were using Companion on had its own instance. But now we have the mothership Companion, and then everything else is tied to it so we can control everything from everywhere, right? So big thanks to my tech director, Brett, who came back inspired and ready to go and just spent way more hours than he's paid for to set that up and get it going in all of our places. And then got to go on the other end of the spectrum over to another church that is a technically set up and tear down church in a theater. And they do a great broadcast, OKC Community Church. I've reviewed them on the channel here before. Josh from Budget Church Budget live streaming Budget Church. I don't know what his YouTube channel is. You'll see it, I'm sure, in the title. They do a great job, though, and it was cool to kind of see the little tricks that he's kind of implemented to get them in and out in a time-effective way where they can still have a really cool broadcast. So if you haven't checked out those videos, highly encourage you to do that. Now, I will say, as I do every month, that I can be bought. So there is the fastpass Superchat for $10 that'll get you to the front of the line. I think we've got like 15 or so in the queue, and you could bump up to the front of the line if you want to do that. You could even submit yours right now and super chat, and that will do that. And I haven't gotten to hit my favorite sound effect yet.
Thank you.
My Michael Scott thank you. So always love getting to hit that for the super chats. But what else has been going on? Let's see. Before we dive into another live stream review, if you guys have any other thoughts, questions, things you want to dive into or talk about, we can do Q&A too. I'm looking at the chat now. I got to scroll back to where we are. Yeah, lots of good stuff in here. Announcement wise, tech news wise, did you guys see that Blackmagic 6Ks have come down in price recently? So I don't remember how much they actually were, but the 6K now is down to, let's see if I can find it here. Looks like $1,575 for the 6K, and that seems like a really cheap price for, I mean, it's full frame, I believe, or it's Super 35. Yeah, full frame 6K. I don't think you need the Pro necessarily for ND filters built onto the 6K. I mean, for a full frame camera with RAW capabilities and live production stuff, I think if you're looking to go full frame, this might be an interesting one, especially if you do iMag and you need some other, maybe you have like higher end cams that you're needing some extra shots for. I should put a link in the description or in the chat right now to you guys go ahead and buy that. So let's do that. How about you just watch me do it? This is how I generate affiliate links. B&H. We're going to shorten this for you guys. We're going to copy that. Then I'm going to come over here. There you go. Now there's a link there for you. And then how about I am curious if you guys know anything what's going on here with Worship Tools. Worship Tools has like acquired or merged with Loop Community and Sunday Sounds. Worship Tools, you know, they're trying to be like Planning Center, Pro Presenter, all that. It's like a Proclaim style thing, but a much more budget friendly one. But I'm not understanding exactly how Loop Community and Sunday Sounds are tied in with Worship Tools now. So just something to keep your eye on. At least I am. I mean, Sunday Sounds does great. Loop Community, we use them quite a bit, not as much as Multitracks. And I've tried some Worship Tool stuff and it's been good, but it's just interesting that they're adding these on. So like price wise, looks like $200 for the year to get Presenter. And they've got a lot of integrations there. So I find that interesting. There is a new, I wonder if there's a new Resi encoder that's coming out, it looks like. I don't know if I don't think they've published it yet, but they sent out an email. Oh, wait. Yeah, $700. And it's HDMI only, though. I'm not sure what those USB ports are for. Maybe just to connect to your computer. And then you have a loop through display port. Maybe this isn't the new one, because I'm not sure this is the new one. The new one I think was $600. Either way, it's just something to keep your eye on there if you're a Resi person. I mean, you can always just do it through Pro Presenter as well. Was there anything else that I saw? Nope, that's it. All right, before we jump into live stream reviews, I'm going to look through the chat, just make sure there's nothing coming in there that you guys wanted to talk about. You guys did have some questions we didn't get to with Jesse. Here was one, though, that was interesting. Ryan, oh, did I undock you? I did. Darn. Ryan asked, how was I able to fix Jesse's audio? So if you guys heard, it was getting really garbled at times, especially when he first jumped on. And it was interesting the way that we're bringing in guests, we being me. I'm going through video.ninja because it's has a lot more flexibility and a higher quality than some of the other ways that I've tried in the past. And the problem was he was using Dante to be able to, through a Neve, I think, mic pre, to get his RE20 mic into the stream. But Video.Ninja doesn't allow Dante for some reason, which I'm going to reach out and ask why. And so he was having to do like a Pro Tools aggregate device to be able to bring in his mic. For some reason, it kept doing that weird glitchy thing. But what's cool on Video.Ninja is that, like, let me go in here and I'll show you real quick. Oh, I don't know if it'll let me. Usually there's somebody in here when you create a room. I can actually see all of his audio devices. So when it started garbling, I would just click refresh on his audio feed and it would re-choose the right thing and that would fix it. So I don't know what was going on, but we made it through it and it was good. And I really appreciate Jesse taking the time to like have an excellent audio source. It's really appreciated. Any other questions? Have you ever heard? Have I ever heard of the CRN 500? So yeah, the CRN 500 is what is it, $4,000 maybe. They have an even better one now, CRN 700, $5,000. So they're higher end. Is it 1-inch sensor on? Yeah, 1-inch CMOS sensor. I mean, the demos that I've seen online, when I talked to Canon at Philo and saw these in person, like, they look great, right? For what they are. I think the CRN 700 maybe is even another option, which is kind of like, is that a thing? Yeah, and it's $9,000, guys. You remember my budget's $11K for the year? So my thing with these cameras is that I think sometimes as tech guys, we depend on PTZ things whenever we really could get volunteers to be camera operators, and it'd be better. For me, I can't dedicate that much funds to like just one camera in our setup. And so I need my cameras to kind of be multifunctional, be able to take out and use for shoots, photography even. And we're getting to the point now where maybe I don't have to have that in every camera because we have 13 cameras. But they're all mirrorless Lumix cameras. I can't see spending that much on a dedicated PTZ camera unless your space is one where it's like you cannot mess with the architecture. You have to hide your camera in a certain way and it has to be remotely controlled. I would still lean on doing one of these over like Middle Things Control with a Ronin with a Blackmagic camera. Like, I've heard that can be achieved, but the guys I've talked to that have tried it found it to be more trouble than it was worth at times. So yeah, the CRN 500s seem to be great, but it's just too much for me. Fam TV says, did you see where Church Motion Graphics merged with Ministry Brands? I did not. I don't even know what Ministry Brands is. What is Ministry Brands? I'm assuming they help brand your ministry. Ministry Brands. Huh. And then it's like you get CMG subscriptions if you pay for Church Motion Graphics. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of similar to what, you know, who was doing who's the feeder for Pro Content? We have Pro Content, and that whoever this was that used to create all these. I thought it was CMG as well. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong CMG. But yeah, I love Pro Content too. We have Igniter as well. So no, I did not see that. I think you're going to see more and more of that though. Mothership organizations taking over everything. And I don't know if it's a great thing or not. I mean, you know, then there's stuff out there like Free Show where you could try that and avoid, just do it all open source. You could be an open source house. You're just using OBS and Free Show and whatever light system there is that's open source, you know, and just do it all on the budget. There are ways to do it. They just come with their own limitations and set of problems. So sometimes it's worth paying the money to have the feature set that you need to do it. Fam TV says, I think it's the same people who do Tidely. Okay, that makes sense. Kind of like how Pushpay bought Resi. So, yeah. All right, well, I say let's jump into our next live stream review. And it's City View Church. They were the first ones to submit this month. And so let's give them a listen and a look and our thoughts. Here we go. Oh, I gotta unmute my YouTube.
That could ever stand against your might. You've always been with us. Every battle you've already won. There is no weapon that has ever left a mark on you. There is no army with the power to conquer truth.
All right, so I'll just tell you about their setup. They're running front of house and broadcast off of an X32. All channels are processed individually, routed into buses for bus compression and EQ, then routed to matrices, one for front of house and one for broadcast for final adjustments. So it sounds pretty similar to kind of what we're doing there on our M32. You guys have any general thoughts about the mix? Any major adjustments that you guys would make? I'll let you listen a little bit more.
Every dead thing is bound to rise. Oh God, our Redeemer. He is faithful to revive. Oh, He will revive. Show me one thing He can't. Show me a mountain He can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough. Anything is possible. Oh, he said, show me one thing. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me what else He can't do. He's the God of the breakthrough. Anything is possible. It's possible.
Well, first of all, I just want to give props to this worship leader who is playing lead electric and leading worship at the same time, because I've tried it and I usually end up wanting to give up on playing guitar altogether. So great job on that. I think the mix sounds really good for what you're doing, especially with the way you've got it set up. Vocals have nice clarity. I like the verbs going on. There's a lot of space in the mix. Let's listen just a little bit more. I feel like the vocals are a little sibilant maybe at times.
I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. Our victory dance, I will dance out of faith. I will crush disappointment. Show me one thing you can.
Hi-hats kind of start overpowering the mix, I feel like, some of the cymbal stuff, especially the hi-hats. Let's move on to video. I think this shot is well framed. It's a little underexposed. Both shots seem to be a little underexposed to me, in my opinion. Anything you could do to add some motion or something, maybe a couple more cameras just on sliders or something to where... See, he's playing some lead lines. Let's go. Yeah, because you basically got the wide shot and the tight shot. And so as we kind of pop between here, let's see as we go forward in the service if anything changes. Because, you know, we're not getting any shots of the band, at least this week. So you got somebody on the camera there following around. It'd be great if you were able to do, you know, some more cameras, get some more shots, just to change things up. As a viewer, audio is definitely more important, though. I like the way you're doing these lower thirds. That looks good. I did see some shake in the camera at one point on the wide shot, and it may be the same camera. But color-wise, like I said, it just seems a little underexposed to me. But sometimes that's a taste thing. People like things underexposed sometimes as well. But yeah, thanks for submitting. That was a great one. You guys are doing a good job. Let's move on. Oh, I'm reading these comments. Assimilate. Yeah, I wondered the same thing. Like, how many tracks were they running? I'm not sure. Daniel, phone's in my pocket, but it sounds really good while I'm doing these chores. Yeah, well, that's good. And honestly, that's how a lot of people watch our live streams, right? You don't need to sit here and look at my face the whole time. You can just listen while you do your laundry or whatever. So thanks again for submitting there. I really appreciate it. Let's move on to City Bible Church of Sacramento. Let me get theirs pulled up. They use a Behringer Wing. Live stream mix bus is fed by post fader bus sends, and mix bus has a precision limiter to maximize the volume. Yeah, mainly just looking for audio tips and tricks. So let me jump over here and pull them up. Here we go. away.
What wonder of wonders, what love is this, that Christ would die for me? His goodness, His merit, His righteousness, this sinner's only plea. Of foolish pride be crucified.
Heard those crowd mics coming.
The work is finished. All my boast is in Jesus. All my hope is His love. And I will glory forever in what the cross has done. Now fully forgiven.
Now fully forgiven, my life is filled with graces undeserved. For mercy that flowed down that sacred hill, let praises now return. Rise up, my soul, and bless the Lord. Who else is worthy? All my boast is in Jesus. All my hope is His love. And I will glory forever.
So it sounds like this is a very vocal-centric, congregational singing style church, and that's great. I like the audience. Listen here.
Ever blessed, Him alone my heart adores, and I will.
Yeah, like I really feel like I'm there in the space, which is great. I'm always a fan of make it maybe a little too live than not live enough. I do wonder sometimes if the vocals are just a little too far out front because, you know, you got your lead player back there, your melodic instruments that I'm just not hearing a ton of.
He alone is worthy. Him alone
Keys are okay.
my heart adores.
Yeah, I just want more guitar. I wonder if you're using any tracks. Kick drum sounds punchy and nice. Like, I think it's great.
Nothing less than the love of Christ my Lord. I boast not in riches and strength or might, but in the grace of God. I glory in weakness, to live is Christ, and plenty or in one, that I may know.
I mean, that may be some of the, like, best audience miking I've heard. So, man, if you're in the chat, let us know how you're doing that. And it may just be, you know, the style of this music, it lends itself to it. You got cage drums and everything else probably just going direct. So, as far as video goes, I mean, your backline is pretty dark. I wish there was some backlight hitting some people to separate them off that dark background. If you want them in the shadow, that's fine. But you got your pretty backdrop there with the stained glass kind of stuff on video. And I wish you had some light hitting some of that back line or front line with some backlight. You know, you're just on your medium shot. If you had a couple other shots to go to, that'd be great, but doesn't appear to be the focus of your live stream, and that is A-okay. So, thank you guys for submitting that live stream, and I hope that you found that helpful. I'm going to pull up our next one here, and I keep checking the chat, guys, for anybody that has a question about anything worship and tech related or just something you want to chat about. Let me know in the comments. And we just got a little bit longer here to kind of pump through some more of these live stream reviews. And the next one up is Stone Ridge Baptist Church. So let's check them out. Oops.
We will sing your praise, oh Lord, shall return in robes of white. The blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face.
Okay, so you do have an electric lead player somewhere. She's just not on camera. So I wonder, you know, similarly, if this one is not live enough on the other end of the spectrum. Let's listen a little more. I hear some tracks in there. Tom sounds leave a little bit to be desired there. Overall, I think it's pretty good. I wish there was a little more live sounding kind of audience mic-y stuff in there. I like the acoustic sound. Yeah, I think it's just maybe like just a missing low end. I'm hearing a lot of vocals, and I wish that kick snare, like we were talking about earlier with Jesse, was a little more like foundational in the mix, like it was really carrying it. And you got the cage going, you should be able to really dial those in, bass guitar, you know, and really get that foundation, and then add everything else to it. Not much for me to comment on the video wise. It's not a bad shot there for the medium shot. I like your background, the gradient, and your screen. Everything looks really clean. Appreciate that everything's level and symmetrical, and yeah, I think it looks great. I like what you've done there with the gutting of the piano and your little mini choir over there on the side. I wish they had a little more space to be free, but you know, that's up to a church on how you kind of want to handle that. Your stage doesn't look to be enormous, so maybe that's just a size limitation too. But for these talking segments, it sure would be nice if you had a close-up shot, waist up kind of thing where you could go to. But yeah, thank you for submitting, and I hope that you found something of that to be valuable. All right. Yeah, man. Andre says, thanks for the review. Indeed helpful. Not doing anything crazy with the crowd mics, just a pair of cardioid condensers pointing down from the ceiling. You know what I found is that it doesn't have to be super complicated for crowd mics. What really makes it the best is if your people are actually singing. If your crowd's not actually participating, then there's nothing to capture. So it sounds like you got a very singing church, and that you're able to capture it pretty well there. Let's move on to our next live stream review. We've got Tehachapi. Are you in the house still? Let's go. Tehachapi Vineyard. We're gonna take a look at yours, and here we go.
There's no need to fear, no need for hesitation. There's a name that echoes over all creation. Jesus, live there, high above the heavens, over every situation that surrounds us. Saying His name with expectation, for the God of our salvation is among us. Oh, lift Him high above the heavens, over every situation that surrounds us.
All right, so before we keep listening, guys, here's some details about their setup. They've got a wing at front of house with an S32 on stage, and then it splits the audio to an X32 compact that's running their live stream audio. So everything's independent except the gain. The wing sets the gain. Questions, overall balance, is there enough space in the mix? Are the drums anywhere close to good? Are vocals sitting right in the mix? Let's listen a little bit more.
Jesus, 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 Jesus.
That's where you should have went to this shot right away. Yeah. I do love this camera shot there where you're going kind of parallaxing in front of the stage. I think it works really well, and y'all set up there. I mean, dude, I think the audio is sounding great. Her vocal is great. The blend is really pleasant, like vocally, melodically. Drums, I think, sound really nice. I'll say the one thing that throws me off a little bit is your male lead singer's headphones. Like, it just disconnects me a little bit. Like, it's, I mean, he may have to have those. I think a lot of times if you have hearing aids or something, you have to wear the kind. And so that may just be a limitation. I've had some guys that have had that before, but it's odd, you know, to see. You glitched. Yeah, it happens. Thanks, Wireless Video. As far as your questions about balance and audio-wise, like, I think it sounds pretty good, dude. There's those crowd mics. Nice. Dueling acoustics. Very nice. Nice. I don't know if my computer's slowing down or what, but my preview of this video, and you guys tell me, is out of sync with the audio as far as like watching the YouTube videos that y'all are submitting. So I hope it's not out of sync for you guys. It may be. I may need to restart that browser maybe or something. I've had it open for a while. Love that shot. Seems a little out of focus whenever I've seen it before, so make sure they're refocusing before you go to it. The pacing of the directing was really good. Lighting looks really nice, even. Got some little backlight kicker lights going on. Audio is tasty. Like, I think you guys are doing a great job. Oh, so you think it's just the ones that are wireless? Because this one's not wireless. Ooh, that's a salty little acoustic line. I haven't heard Gratitude played that way. I like it though. Right after I bragged on him, right? That's the way it goes, right? It's like the curse of the announcer. Like, he's a 95% free throw shooter. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander misses free throws in our final game against the Dallas Mavericks. Are you kidding me? If he makes his free throws, we win that game. And we would be in the Western Conference Championship. I'm not salty about it, though. I was hoping, I was hopeful for our young Thunder team, but it was not meant to be, and that's okay. Let's see, any other comments coming in here? I'm kind of tired of doing live stream reviews today. Like, I'm kind of over it. So if you guys want to chat about anything, we got 10 more minutes maybe we can talk, and I would love just to, you know, hear your thoughts or any questions you've got. Any special projects you got going on this summer that you're going to be tackling. We actually just installed some lighting, some additional house lighting in our smaller venue across the hallway. Went with the spring tree pendants for those, not the big pendants, the 50-watt spatial pendants. And so I'll do a review of those coming up soon. We went with a lesser amount than is recommended because we're using it more for just color and like vibe lighting. Right now we have those like not old, they're new, the LED UFOs, but they don't dim down. Like, they're either bright or off is what you have. They dim, but they cut off at like 25%, and so, which is still way too bright. So, you know, we're in the process of moving into this smaller space, going to more services, 3 services instead of 2, for the time that we're out of our worship center. And so my summer is kind of revolving around like, hey, we got to build a stage now that fits our team, our Sunday morning team. We adjust the house lighting stuff. We're going to put in a small LED wall in there just to help out and make it a good worship space. And so, a lot of my time has been spent doing that. We also have the whole building project stuff going on that I manage as far as media. So we created a fun little video for that. I don't know if you saw that. I shared it on my social medias. And so we do have a super chat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Silas. He says, thanks for this great and in-depth stream with Jesse. Would love to get some feedback later on. Yeah, Silas, I think you submitted yours. Let me see if I can find what church you were with, or maybe I can find you by your name. But anyway, so that's kind of what I'm up to this summer, is just kind of managing all that. And then we have kids camps, and we do our camp at the school down the street, actually, for our kids camp. And so luckily we don't have to take full sound. I installed the new sound system in that elementary school this last fall. And so that was fun. I am not an integrator, nor do I ever want to be. So yeah, that was my first and last experience doing an install, because I just did not like it. All right, Silas. Hey, you paid the bill. Let's do it. Come on. I'll pull up your live stream here. Silas says, similar to Red Rocks, Pro Tools HDX with 128 channel plus 64 via Dante virtual sound card, controllers and Avid S3 we already had. So Jesse, if you're still out there and you're watching and you have some thoughts, pop it into the chat. But yeah, for us, we'll give you whatever thoughts we have. All right, so feedback on that opener. I like your camera shots there. That's pretty cool. I love the energy. The mix sounds really, really good to me. In my ears, there was one part where your lead guitar was really shredding, and it was like hard pan to my left ear, and that kind of was like grabbing my attention a little too much, maybe. Vocals, though, he asked about like, are the vocals sitting well? Along with like the crowd mics, and are the crowd mics too hot? I thought it was pretty nice to my ears. I mean, I'm using 64s that are pretty balanced.
Yes! Seid ihr ready, diesen Jesus anzubeten nochmal heute? Seid ihr ready, von ihm zu erzählen?
I hear you panning her back. Yeah.
Komm an, alle Hände bis ganz nach hinten.
Come on, everyone! To the back!
I mean, okay. I see you're trying to go for that build pop in between. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Pumping in, quick, on-offs. Maybe if it was cycling between different cameras, this kind of feels like an accident to me. I mean, it's up to you. Snare sounds great.
Tell the world about you. We're not ashamed of your fame. Stand in place. We will never be tamed. You are the answer we know. No time to wait.
It is very like arena sounding, like I'm in the arena, which you're asking, is it too much crowd mics? I mean, it feels like I'm kind of there. It may be a touch too much, but I don't think it's bad.
Raise a shout, make it loud before our God. Na 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 na. We were stuck within you all till the end. Na 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 na. You are the answer we know.
Sounds like a Planet Shaker song.
Now we gotta go. We're going to tell the world about you. We're going to tell the world about you. We're going to tell the world about you.
Hey, what are you guys using for your cable cam? Is it a dactyl cam?
Jesus, Jesus, revival's in the air. Just one name we bear. It is only you, Jesus, Jesus. You're the flag we raise. Just one name we praise. It is only you, Jesus, Jesus. Revival's in the air. Just one name we bear. It is only you, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, Jesus. We're going to tell the world about you. Jesus, Jesus, we're going to tell the world about you. Jesus, Jesus, we're going to tell the world about you.
Got those geysers going.
Jesus, Jesus, we're going to tell the world about you.
And number 5. I'm pretty impressed. Sorry, I'm probably not qualified to tell you. I mean, anybody can give their opinion on something, but it sounds like you guys are using the technology to its fullest there. So, yeah, man, I think it sounds great. Yeah, I was curious what dactyl, is that a dactyl cam doing this shot? It's kind of interesting. Camera stuff looks great. Love the energy. I probably wouldn't, I mean, it seemed like that vibe of that song lended itself to like taking some risk with directing and doing some different stuff that you maybe wouldn't typically do. And this is at a big conference, so maybe not a Sunday morning type thing you would do. But yeah, it's very color washy here for some reason. I'm not sure what's happening there. Anyways, yeah, man, thanks for submitting, and thank you for the super chat. I greatly appreciate that. Okay. Awesome. What else, guys? Is it time for me to go home? Is that what y'all are saying? He says it's a 4-point aerial camera system called Eagle Eye. Okay. Like the Spider Cam system. Mike Dodd, bruh. You sound like my 15-year-old. I don't know what you're saying. Oh, he says, I'm amazed. Oh, like, dang, this is amazing. I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, great job. Mike wants his church to be reviewed. Dude, I've been on here for 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's time for Ryland to go spend time with his wife and kids. So that does bring me to my final point, though, is that if you really do want to have some one-on-one consult stuff, you can always do that through my website, rylandrussell.com, and that has one-on-one consulting available there. It also has a list to all of the gear that I use and recommend, and those are affiliate links, which help out the family for sure and help the channel stay alive. If you know the state of YouTube right now, there's a lot of hubbub about like sponsorships and the relationship between YouTubers and businesses, and like are people lacking integrity in that area when disclosing sponsorships. I want you to know on my channel, I will always do my very best to have integrity and only recommend things that we're actually using. And, products are good fits for different churches and different applications. And so I may review something that we're not technically using at the moment, but I'm going to be very honest and open, and I cannot be bought. How about that? We'll just say that. Unless you want your live stream reviewed, and then I can't be bought. Anyways, I appreciate you guys all hopping on. There was, 40 or 50 of us here the whole time. Special thanks again to Jesse. It was great to get to visit with him and learn from somebody that has been doing this a long time. And let's just do our best to make this week's service a little bit better than last week's service and just keep growing and being open to feedback like we talked about. And remember, guys, we can do a lot of great things. Let's do it all for God's glory. We will see ya in the next live stream next month. It's going to be a good one. Adios.